Thank you so much, Meg, for that beautiful introduction. I am just flying high here because this is my second time having the pleasure of speaking with Ashley today. We're going to drop a link in the chat box in just a second so you all can review the hour-long awesome conversation that we had on the Chat and Learn program here at Power to Fly. I've sent that out to several friends, and I hope that you all feel empowered to do that as well. But let's get into talking about self-empowerment, all things authenticity, self-love, healthy motivation, and more. Ashley's going to drop a lot of knowledge. I left our last conversation feeling super inspired. So, Ashley, I'm going to pass the mic to you. I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you first became interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh my goodness. This has been great. I'm so jazzed right now. I'm amped up. I'm excited and honored to be here. I think that diversity, equity, inclusion is so uniquely core to everyone. And we have to make sure that everyone knows that it comes down to differences. And there are 7 billion different people on this planet, and no one is alike. So that means diversity applies to everyone. And you all watching today and participating on the replay have to know that you have to be able to communicate that to others who don't necessarily understand this passion behind this work. This work involves everyone. And for real change to happen, we have to make sure that we make that happen and make that connection point happen. So without giving away too much from our earlier chat and learn, real quickly, well, my intro really said it, part-time teller, overcoming everything, homelessness, self-identification. I came out of the closet as a way to really differentiate myself. Why not highlight all of my differences? And that concept is using empowerment to create real change for you. You can use empowerment to be the secret recipe for your future. And I'm excited to talk about it today.
Yes. Okay. So I know that we don't have as much time as we had on our first conversation. So let's buckle in. Let's drop some knowledge. Let's have fun. And actually, I know that folks are really interested in hearing more about your journey. So can you walk us through what it was like, for you to be able to find and hone in the concept of self-identification to overcome homelessness and leverage differences that allowed you to move from part-time bank teller to VP of diversity and inclusion in less than 5 years. So yes, hallelujah, it's possible. I love that you're fearlessly doing that. Can you share with our live callers now, a little bit more about that journey so you can
Yeah.
inspire folks to, be unapologetically themselves in this journey as well?
Yeah, so I outline these 10 key empowering actions that are all able to be done by anyone in any path, in any part in your journey, wherever you are in your journey, because we all have our journey and it depends on the intersectionality and our layer of differences and our privilege. All of those things impact that. For me, there were three key actions that were really, really important in getting hired. And that was the action of education. And so I literally would educate employers about my difference in an interview. And that was groundbreaking back in 2009, 2010. People weren't talking transgender rights at that point. So that was really interesting. And then the second action that I used just to gain employment was the action of inspiration. And you may be wondering in this virtual component, what does she mean? How do we use inspiration? Well, for me, inspiration is built into how you leverage your communication and what you communicate. So when you communicate in a job interview or working on growing your career, and you communicate information about how you did overcome obstacles, how you had a door slammed in your face like I had from someone who didn't want me in their space, you communicating that information is inspiration. And when you do that in a manner, it will change hearts and minds for others. And that's where the authenticity lives. It lives through those actions. The third action that I did to gain employment was to use this concept of empowerment. And then I realized that using empowerment was the catalyst for real change. It was how I actually got started to get a job offer. And what I mean by that is coming with the data. Come with the empowering data surrounding your authenticity. Talk about the buying power of your community. Talk about how many people with your unique diversity exist in society. If you do that, you're not ever putting authenticity on its own on an island. And that's a dangerous place to be when you put anything, anytime you share something about yourself, you identify about yourself, that identification, that is your authenticity. And if you put it out there on its own and you just say, oh yeah, I'm a transgender person, or I'm queer, or anything in our community, or those who are allies, you are leaving it up to the other person to pick it up however which way they want to pick it up. But if you combine an action, an empowering action, with your authenticity when you are self-identifying, and now you're sharing it, it's not just with yourself, it's with others, and you're sharing it, that's where we want you to live, is in that space, and using these actions to create the narrative for how people are going to perceive you, and that will lead to more success.
So Ashley, I love speaking about emotional intelligence and just how we have a lot of work to do when it comes to developing our own emotional intelligence. And then, of course, when we put that into the workplace and in our communities, um, I'm assuming that you had to practice a lot of emotional intelligence before even putting any kind of pen to paper and getting this book, out of you. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process? Why did you write this book? What has been what has been the feedback so far? And what are you looking to do in the future? Are you looking to write more books, or maybe, have more workshops? Let us know a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, first things I'll say is that I think emotional intelligence, while it's a very foundational concept in DEI, I do feel that it is slightly problematic. And I think it's important to point that out, just because when you call someone emotionally, or if someone practices emotional intelligence, someone might pick that up and say, oh, well, if I don't, does that mean I'm unintelligent? And it doesn't mean that, but just from a standpoint, I wish we had picked a better terminology. Not that on your fault, but right. But it's like,
Well,
that's what
absolutely.
it's
It's
called.
one of the things I'd like to call out is that there has been in my opinion, very little research on emotional intelligence. So, I mean, even coining it that, it's especially in the workplace, it's like, no, you're historically speaking, we're supposed to check our emotions at the
Right.
door. But
Yeah.
one of the things that
Don't
makes
talk
us
about
human,
emotion.
right? You don't talk about emotions, you don't bring the mess to the work. It's like, but you can be dying inside because you're not releasing, or you're not showing empathy, or, you're not self-aware. So I love that, the challenge to the way that we name it. And just to be clear as well, I'll say that there totally is a spectrum of where we are on the emotional intelligence scale, let's say. No?
Yeah. Well, and so to answer your question, I'm like taking us on another whole tangent. But still, yeah, I mean, I think that this journey for you around your identification is really, really important to get other people's perspective. That's what that means for me. It means about perspective. So I convened a panel of 10 experts who were, in a sense, kind of like my board of directors for everything that I do around empowering differences. It's the framework for how I built the course. It's the future framework for the next book that, yes, I am working on another book. So there is that. Empowerment is not easy, and it can't be solved with just one book. So, and another thing that, well, without giving away too much around my next book, but leadership. I mean, like literally everything that I was hinting at around empowering your differences ties to leadership. But because if you're listening right now, you're watching, or you're reading, or you're participating in any way possible, I want you to think about and picture, if I say leadership expert, who do you picture? And because for the last hundreds of years, it's always been a white male who is the quote unquote leadership expert. And we have to be intentional to program our brains to think about different people as leadership experts. And it needs, so Today, it's leadership from unlikely sources. You can earn and learn a lot of leadership from so many places that you may not expect it. Even your server or your part-time bank teller. Okay, you can get leadership from anywhere. It can be from your gig worker, gig economy. It can be from your rideshare driver. It can come from anywhere. And if you are open to always accepting knowledge and learning about others, then you are empowering differences. Oh my goodness, you're on mute.
Because I'm so excited, I forgot to press unmute. Okay, glitch. Well, can't stop, won't stop. So speaking of leadership, you were named to the National Board of Directors of GLAAD in 2019. Can you tell us about why you wanted to work with them and some of the initiatives you've worked on?
Oh my goodness, I love GLAAD, and really leadership is one of the reasons why I wanted to be a part of such an amazing organization. Sarah K. Ellis has just done such amazing transformational work for GLAAD, really getting back to our roots around accountability projects and reports to make a major impact. We have a GLAAD accountability project, which is glad.org/GAP. So, and that accountability project holds people accountable for their actions, because I'm sure many of our participants today have probably seen some of the documentaries that we've consulted on, like Disclosure. And if you haven't watched that, please now put that on your queue list, because it will help you to really understand why for the last 100 years, transgender people have been, and gender nonconforming people have been misrepresented in the media. And so GLAAD does a lot of work in that space. So I am so honored and proud to raise funds for GLAAD as the vice chair of the board and the chair of the development committee. It's literally, we're going to be writing a new future around media representation. And it's so important. To be represented is to feel belonged. To be represented is to feel identification. All of those things tie into what we're talking about today.
Yes, yes. And speaking of belonging and queerness in the digital space, let's add another layer. I have a really interesting question that a friend of mine asked me to ask you live. But before I go to that question, for those of you who don't know, GLAAD is a leading LGBTQ plus advocacy group, and they recently analyzed social media and found that the leaders of social media are unsafe for us as LGBTQ plus people. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram are all unsafe for us. Ashley, was this shocking news for you?
No, it was not. I can tell you right now, I have personally been put on tilt on a social media company where I was defending someone who got misgendered, or someone who got called the wrong name, or someone who's been literally attacked in many ways, bullied, harassed. This is very common. In fact, there are social media companies right now, today, literally, I was today years old, where you could go on to a social media influencer's YouTube page who's talking openly about their trans life. And there could be an ad shown on that page for conversion therapy. I was today years old when that happened. So that's the world we live in, and it's not safe for us in many ways. So GLAAD is now producing the Social Media Safety Index. So that's www.glad.org/SMSI, Social Media Safety Index. And I'll tell you that the future iterations of the Social Media Safety Index will include a rating scale where we will literally be scoring the social media organizations on how well they portray and protect and amplify LGBTQ voices. So you can bet your bottom dollar that GLAAD is going to be working to protect and amplify our community every step of the way. Right now, it doesn't actually give them a score, because you can infer what that means. We're giving them a year to get used to the fact that we're going to be holding them accountable. Okay, people don't
Yes,
want to necessarily.
accountability. Sign me up. I'm like, it's either that or I'm not on Instagram. It's like I'm either in the mountains doing nothing with technology at all because I can't, I don't feel like I belong. Or it's accountability. So I love that. And actually, to just dive deeper, how can we be more mindful on a global level as queer folks using social media until this accountability piece happens? That GLAD is implementing.
Well,
Thank you so
it's
much.
happening.
It's happening. It's happening. It's happening.
It's just we're gonna tighten it as we get into next year. But we made them all aware. I mean, when we made them all aware, they all asked for help, so that's a good sign. But yeah, so for someone who is participating today, and you're wondering, okay, what does this actually mean? I mean, it's not going to change anything in the right now, but this is work that we're doing that's going to impact down the line. Continue to report things that you see that are not right, and keep doing those kinds of things to follow the parameters that are set up within each social media platform. But remember to think about empowerment too, because what's going to be more empowering, you controlling the comment box or you working on the movable middle? Which one? I don't know. The 4% of the people who you will never change their mind, you will give them every article, every resource, every fact. You're not going to change their mind. Let's focus on the people that we can influence, that we can provide enlightenment.
Yes, and just on this empowerment note, I've been able to interview folks throughout the summit, and one of the questions that I keep bringing to the table is do we need to ask for space at the table, or do we need to create our own table? So I have this question that I'm going to ask you comes from actually a
Authentic.
woman who is creating her own tech that is sex positive, body positive, and doesn't have to depend on another social media because censorship is real and it happens, even though the most natural thing that we can express as Homo sapiens is to be empowered and feel our bodies and be proud of that, right? So her question is, this is Sarah Massey. She's the co-founder of Freak, which stands for Freedom for Queers, and she says, what would Ashley's dream media be? What media is empowering for you?
Oh my goodness. So I would say, well, first, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. So remember that famous quote. Okay, so there is that. Um, but for me, I mean, I think it's a collection of inclusive medium. Like I want to be a part of something that is like what you see here, where we have chat, we have captions, we have technology, right? We have the social handles for all your speakers. So connect and follow them. I mean, you're going to be able to create more of your own network of champions, but then also take the time to follow somebody that you disagree with. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now that might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that's the medium that I want. I want to be on the know of what other political parties might be doing. I want to be able to know what's happening. I'm going to watch multiple news channels. Okay, I'm not going to only watch one network. I'm going to look across all of them. I mean, that's literally empowerment. Unfortunately, you might hear things that you might not want to hear, but sometimes you need to hear those things. You need to hear somebody talking not so nice about you sometimes, because then that's going to give you more fuel to fight your empowerment mission.
Yes, and actually, I want to bring back some of these questions that I asked you on our first conversation because they were great, and I love the way that you really dove in deep and you were authentically like, this is what you need to do, right? So, obviously, depending on where people are from, depending on their backgrounds, depending on accessibility, all of these things, we either are lacking a piece to feel fully empowered, or we're on that road. So can you share some top tips for feeling empowered, and how do we bring ourselves up when we don't have a supportive community or a supportive background, let's say?
As my most favorite number one tip to feeling more empowered is to start engaging with my 4-step process of empowerment. So in the chat somewhere, someone will nicely place the link to my free self-assessment for you all for participating in today's event, or the replay. And the self-assessment is going to help you categorize all your differences so that way you are ready for empowerment. It's going to help you categorize about you, your empowerment, any privileges that you have, how you see the world, how people may see you. It's a list of questions are all open-ended, and they're open-ended for a reason. So you don't plug them into a personality profile exam and then you never get to know exactly what you said and you can't refer back to it. And you just get spit out an answer that says, oh, you are a this. And I don't want to ever create something that says that you are a this, because that doesn't necessarily create an inclusive world. So download the self-assessment. It's a PDF. You can fill it. It's fillable. And you can start to think about these questions, but think really hard about them. And then engage in this process of empowerment. So that will help you know yourself, which is step one. That will help you then know others, which is step two, because that's where you'll dive into that intersectionality and that privilege. It will also help you with step three, which is around developing your strategy for empowerment. Then it will lead you to step four, which is to use these empowering actions that I've been kind of hinting at. And I've been talking about a lot of them already in this short time that we have together. But those actions are ways that you can really create the domino for change that you want, because empowerment is not easy. If it was super easy, everyone would do it. Okay, so just know that what you're doing is not going to be easy. And if you know that going in, you can mentally prepare and put yourself in a better space.
Yes, yes. So let's say that, a person is already feeling that self-empowerment. How can we then use our power and authority to lift those around us?
I love it. So remember, power and authority is giving it. You have to give it. So, lift up others' voices, retweets, follows are so simple, easy. It takes you 2 seconds to go through and follow everyone who you see is registered in the event. Follow all the speakers, amplify what they are doing, because if they're here speaking at Power to Fly, then you can bet your bottom dollar that there's a connection point that you need to know. But also go out and, like I said, culturalize something. Hear what somebody else's point of view is. Just listening to other points of view is going to make a major impact in this journey of empowerment, because then you'll be able to know what the obstacle is that's about to be coming, and you can better prepare for what that obstacle will be. That's what I had to do in growing my career. I had to know, okay, this person's going to have a problem with me, and they're going to think that I can't sell because as a transgender person, that's going to present me with an obstacle. Okay, well, let me just go ahead and figure out how I'm going to sell and still be me. And I went ahead and built that plan, and then I executed it, and then I tracked the results. If you don't track the results from what you do, it can't be empowering without results. It can't be empowering without data. You can't have empowerment without being able to say that you drew $3 million in revenue for the company this year, or that's the year before, or the year before that. And if you can't speak to that, then you won't have empowerment.
And it's not bragging, it's reminding yourself and others, like, look, this is what I did. What, are you into this? And it's cool if you're not, I'll find someone else that is, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, we have to brag. If we don't brag, somebody else isn't going to do that.
So, wow, I told you time was going to fly. We've got 2 minutes left. So, Ashley, if you could give yourself a piece of advice, your former life, Ashley, or your former self, or your younger self, whoever you want to speak to. I always like to talk to my former life self, Mariella. What were you doing back then? Is there one piece of advice that you would give yourself? It's okay if the answer is no, but I like to ask this question.
Always. I mean, why would you not want advice? I would probably say it would be to probably have more patience, because oh boy, I mean, you have to let things develop. Okay, this is part of developing your strategy. It's not going to happen immediate. Like I said, empowerment is not easy. It's a process. You have to give those investments and allow the resource allocation from an investment to materialize. So that's going to require a little bit more patience.
I feel like you just put a wrench in the whole system because the way that everyone works these days is productivity, productivity, go, 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 go fast, go hard, data, numbers, money. And you're like, be patient. So you're like, being provocative in that sense, like slow down, contemplate, figure
Yeah.
out if it's benefiting you and others. So thank you for that piece of advice. Hopefully people can start taking that now so that we
Yeah.
can practice, being more patient with everything that's happening around us. Ashley, thank you so much. Remind us again how we can buy your book and support the great work that you're
Yes.
doing.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So always do author direct because that's more empowering. So there's that. You can go to empoweringdifferences.com, the same website where you've hopefully been able to access my self-assessment for free. And then on my website, you can use my coupon code, which is Power to Fly, obviously, the coupon code. And that will save you 25% off of anything that you buy on my website, my book, my workbook, my online leadership course, which comes with 40 hours of SHRM credits. So I know that we've got some SHRM credit people looking for credit hours. So you can do that. And then you can connect with me on social at Ashley T Brundage, all one word, or you can connect with Empowering Differences at Empowering Diff.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Yes, you have so much going on and you're so amazing at all the things that you're doing. So I look forward to connecting again. This is not the last time. Please believe that. And anyway, I'm going to pass the mic back to Meg because I know we've got some more awesome folks who are lined up to speak. So thank you, everyone.